In the early 80s, the U.S. dollar floated high against the Japanese yen and German Deutschmark, buoyed by the Reagan-era combination of tight money and a high budget deficit. That was good news for Japan and Germany because the high dollar meant a low yen and Deutschmark and low prices for Japanese and German exports, more sales, and more jobs. But the high dollar was bad news for the U.S. Higher export prices, declining sales, lost jobs, and calls for government protection. As Ronald Reagan's Treasury Secretary, James Baker believed that free markets made their best choices without government interference. But as a practical politician, he knew what would happen if the government failed to act.
The United States was facing a real prairie fire of protectionism. There was a lot of protectionist sentiment in the Congress. Legislation was being discussed, if not introduced, and it was our view that something had to be done about that.
To head off the threatened protectionism, Baker picked New York's Plaza Hotel as the site for secret monetary diplomacy. A 1985 gathering of finance ministers and central bankers from the G5, the big industrial nations. Their surprise decision, the Plaza Accord, an agreement to sell dollars on worldwide currency markets in an effort to send the dollar and American export prices down. Why would Germany and Japan be willing to give up the advantages of the low Deutschmark and yen? Finance Minister Gerhard Stoltenberg represented Germany at the Plaza.
Maybe a short-term advantages could be endangered when the other important countries, in this case especially United States, would be negatively affected, especially by a expanding trade deficit which created tensions also for the other countries. So we wanted a surplus in trade, but not as big as we had when the dollar was more than 3 Deutschmark.
Toyo Giyoden was Japan's Vice Minister of Finance at the Plaza.
Strong dollar made Japanese exports very easy, and very large Japanese surplus generated international criticism against Japan. Japan was concerned about those criticisms.
The Plaza Accord put the G5 back into the international exchange rate equation. Had they abandoned the policy of market-driven exchange rates?
Well, it was essentially a policy change, even though at the time we probably disclaimed the idea that it was a big policy change.
The dollar had been dropping, and now it dropped faster, down a record 4.29% the day after the Plaza, down almost 55% a year later against the yen. Had the new strategy worked? MIT professor Paul Krugman.
All the evidence before and since has suggested that intervention on the scale that actually took place should not have made very much difference. The usual experience has been that an intervention of the size, a few $1 billion, that took place after the Plaza Accord is something, if the market doesn't agree, the market thinks the dollar should be going up and you intervene to try to force it down, the market can swallow $20 billion of intervention with just a slight burp and then continue on its progress. So the intervention itself probably isn't the explanation. There's a second view, which some people call the slap in the face theory, which was that the market was going crazy and the Plaza Accord, all these dignified finance ministers got together and said, the dollar is too high, it really should be going down, and the market started going, thanks, I needed that, and the dollar started to fall instead.
The dollar kept falling, and the finance ministers and central bankers were satisfied.
戦争に勝ったのはどちらだったのか。日本の激しい貿易攻勢でアメリカ産業は壊滅寸前である。
It's good to remind the Japanese that a few of us still remember that we are willing to make peace, that we supported them in their time of famine and disaster after the war, that we brought their scholars and scientists here and taught them how to make the instruments with which they now compete with us, that we requited Japanese enmity with enormous generosity on our part. And I am willing to be generous again, but not to the point of folly.
We are in a war. This is only the first shot.
America is up in arms, Mr. Speaker, and it was a mistake to underestimate our frustrations. Unless this warning is heeded, retaliation and possibly full-blown trade warfare lie just around the corner.
"市場介入を行えばドルが安くなるというのは尊大な考えです。市場はコントロールできません。為替を動かすには政策協調が必要でした。
4月11日のアメリカの新聞。ベーカー長官と会談したイギリスのローソン蔵相の発言です。
私たちは日本にこう伝えたのです。日本が貿易を拡大し消費を増やすことができないなら、アメリカは円高ドル安になるのを認めるしかないと。円高ドル安を放置すれば日本は不安になります。私たちは円高放置を日本に協力を求める交渉の手段としたのです。
あの時には私たちとしても日本が協力してくれるよう最善の行動を取るしかなかったのです。